In the realm of Team Fortress 2, there's a wide variety of weapons to choose from, and every player has their own style with a series of weapons that they just cannot live without. Today I'll be celebrating my very first countdown video by sharing my personal favorite weapons that I use in Team Fortress 2. Bear in mind that these are not weapons that I think are the best, but rather the weapons that I find either very useful or disturbingly fun to use. Here's my list of 7 Team Fortress 2 items, in no particular order, that I just love using. This list is surely off to the most phenomenal start when the Darwin's Danger Shield is the first to be mentioned. Before the jungle update, the DDS was one of the most hated items in Team Fortress 2, and I can really see why. It granted a 25 health bonus, a slight resistance to bullet damage with a cost of more explosive vulnerability. A sniper using the old DDS was able to take a quick scope headshot and survive with 7 health, which was of course subject to waves upon waves of assault from many sniper mains. The irony was that killing a DDS sniper was not that hard. All you would need to do is wait for a moment for your charge meter to build and take down the offending sniper. It required some patience and persistence, you know, like an actual sniper. Alas, with the jungle update, the Darwin's Danger Shield was repurposed so it instead granted resistance to fire as well as afterburn immunity. At first glance, this does seem like a harsh change filled by try-hard elitist snipers that have salt spewing out of their anuses until you stop and realize just how useful being resistant to fire actually is. I can't count the number of times where I've had a clean shot and was suddenly interrupted by a trolling pyro with a flare gun from across the map. With the immunity to afterburn, a stray flare no longer messes up a good shot with 10 seconds of agonizing flinching. Despite what many of you might think, the Darwin's Danger Shield is still a great utility item that can get you out of a jam when you need it.
I'm sorry, mate.
When it comes to releasing new content, there's an interesting fun fact when you compare Valve's Team Fortress 2 to Blizzard's Overwatch. When released, Overwatch tends to underpower its new characters, like Orisa, while Team Fortress 2 loves to overpower its weapons like the Dragon's Fury, and in this list's case, the Tide Turner. The Tide Turner is the third shield that was made for the Demo Man during the Love and War update. It had the least resistance of any of the shields, but it allowed for full turning control, charge crits, and the complete refill of your charge meter if you happen to get a kill while using it. This in turn would allow you to rapidly chain kills at a hilarious rate. Naturally, this hilariously broken shield was in need of a change, and after a couple tweaks, a charge can now only mini crit and kills while charging refills the meter up to 75%. This, along with damage reducing your charge time, made the Tide Turner more reasonable to use, but it's always satisfying to be able to surprise enemy snipers by swinging around a corner before they realize what's going on. Just imagine what it would be like if the Demo Man starred as Jason Voorhees in the next Friday the 13th movie. During the Meet Your Match vote between the Pyro and the Heavy, I was always for Heavy mainly because I really thought he needed more to his arsenal. The Heavy is one of those classes that no one really wants to play solely for helping out the team, especially when you compare it to the amount of Pyros that exist in a given team. Take a moment and think of the number of times you've seen a Heavy on your team and then compare it to the number of Pyros you've also seen on your team. Also, I'm sorry if that brings up PTSD in some of you. It also doesn't help that the Heavy's assortment of miniguns sort of feel the same if you don't play the class that often. That is, except for the Hulong Heater. This unique minigun is based off the Chinese dragon, and like any good dragon, this weapon breathes fire while the gun is spun up. Some might be raising a finger to protest that the minigun uses 4 ammo per second while spun up. And while this is true, the reason why it's on this list is when a Hulong Heater Heavy finds his way onto any map with a payload cart. The best way to offset ammo consumption is to have a steady supply of ammunition, and what better way to get ammo than by pushing a cart that conveniently gives you a steady supply like it was a drug dealer. This offset combined with the Ring of Fire that burns up inexperienced spies effectively makes the Hulong Heater a direct upgrade to the minigun. The next time you find yourself on a payload map, break out your dragon-based super weapon and stick to that cart like you were superglued to it while you literally fire without stopping.
Kaboom! Kaboom!
Number 4 on this list certainly is one of the most sadistic weapons for anyone to use, and while I personally don't use this weapon that often, I can't deny that the Backburner is one of my favorite weapons. Many people tend to forget that the Pyro is meant to be an ambush class. In a perfect world, the soldier would be on the front lines, the scout would be flanking the left and right sides of the enemy, and the pyro would hide until they can strike behind enemy lines. The backburner is the perfect example of the devastation that a rear assault on an unsuspecting enemy can be. The backburner has a much greater air blast consumption rate, but the upside is that any enemy hit from behind is a guaranteed critical hit. Just imagine the damage that can be done to an enemy team if they're focusing on one direction with their rear unguarded. Forget spy checking, I'm more concerned about pyro checking when I know there's a backburning pyro roaming the map. To make it worse, just because a backburner has a high air blast consumption rate doesn't mean a pyro can't use it. Any good pyro using the backburner doesn't just use it for offensive purposes but also for defensive too, which is a very scary thought. I think we can all agree that when it comes to critiquing the arts, the French has some very strict tastes. From the finest of cuisines all the way down to something as innocuous as an ice sculpture. And when it comes to sculptures made of ice, the memo that these sculptures should be made from actual ice instead of human bodies doesn't seem to reach the spy using the spy-cicle. This chilling weapon does what any good sharp object would do when poking someone really hard from behind their diaphragm, but as a bonus it leaves behind a frozen statue of your once living victim. Even the power of a pyro's flamethrower may not be enough to save a team from a spy with a spy-cicle. By sacrificing his weapon, the spy becomes fireproof for a brief second but also becomes immune to afterburn for 10, giving the spy enough time to escape, regenerate his weapon, and then come back to make more art out of your unfortunate teammates. A subtly evil weapon, but one I love solely for its unique effect.
Surprise!
So you're an engineer. You're out solving practical problems by filling enemies full of holes with a heavily mounted tripod machine gun. Life's good, right? That is until your precious man-killer is destroyed and you're now a sitting duck ready for some big mean mother hubbard to tear you a structurally superfluous new behind. If you happen to find yourself in this kind of situation, then the Frontier Justice may be the weapon for you. The Frontier Justice tracks the number of kills and assists your sentry has, and upon its destruction, gives you guaranteed crits to take out your rage on enemies. It's a fantastic weapon to have when you know you're going to be using a sentry in an area that has some sort of choke point where you can rack up kills. At close range, the Frontier Justice can take out any class with ease, but because it has a low ammo clip, it's best suited for taking out weaker classes like scouts or support classes like medics. But if you find yourself behind enemy lines after they mow down your sentry, then it's just as good to take the pyro route and ambush tougher classes like soldiers from behind. If you're the type of person that loves to troll as well, consider pairing your Frontier Justice up with a gunslinger. The spam with mini sentries combined with a 25 health bonus will keep you alive as you rack up kills, giving your Frontier Justice plenty of crits. And nothing can prepare an enemy team for the oh shit moment when they realize that you're rolling up in their faces with a shotgun full of crits that they're not ready for.
That catch your eye, son?
The final item on my favorite weapons list is one that I think was specifically designed to be both an effective weapon and incredibly fun to use with our favorite drunken idiot. We're going back to the Demo Man and the Loose Cannon, or as I like to call it, the ultimate crowd control weapon. Unlike most demo primaries, the Loose Cannon fires cannonballs that don't explode on impact, but instead bounce enemies back before exploding. It's not the best in wide open areas, but also unlike normal demo weapons, you can charge the fuse before firing a cannonball, allowing it to explode as soon as it's fired. This really comes in handy against scouts if they're giving you a hard time at mid-range. But the best use of the Loose Cannon is in choke points at medium to long range. Choke points usually mean a bunch of enemies packed into a confined space, which will almost guarantee that your cannonball hits something. Not only that, but if the cannonball explodes right after hitting an enemy, then that enemy is hit with a mini crit with an oddly appropriate name called a double donk. There's few things more fun and satisfying than causing complete disarray of enemies by hitting them in the faces with cannonballs, or as the late George Carlin puts it,
reach over here and fondle my balls, would you please?
So that was my list of 7 of my favorite weapons in Team Fortress 2. Are some of these weapons your favorites too? Or are there other weapons that you find a lot of enjoyment using? Let me know in the comments down below, and check out some of these other videos for more commentaries.